right, so let's jump into it. Index funds versus mutual funds. It's a classic debate, right?
It is, and your emails definitely show that people are curious about this one.
For sure. Lots of questions. Everyone wants to make smart choices with their investments, but sometimes the jargon can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it can feel like learning a whole new language.
Exactly. And that's where this deep dive comes in. We're going to cut through the noise, break it down, and help you figure out which path is right for you.
That's the goal.
Okay, so at a basic level, we've got these two investment vehicles, index funds and mutual funds. They both can help you grow your money over time, but they go about it in different ways. Kind of like, I don't know, like choosing between a personal chef and a buffet.
I like that. Both can satisfy your hunger, but the experience is totally different.
Right. So with mutual funds, it's more like joining an investment club.
Mm-hmm.
You're pooling your money with other investors.
Right.
And then you got this professional fund manager who's calling the shots.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Those fund managers, they're actively selecting investments, aiming to, trying to outperform the market, like a skilled captain navigating a ship.
Right, like they're trying to beat the market. But I've also seen a lot about uh, passive management within mutual funds.
Ah, yeah.
So what's the difference there?
Good question. It really comes down to the manager's approach. Think of it this way. An active manager is constantly trying to outsmart the market, trying to beat it.
Yeah.
They're analyzing trends and picking specific stocks, hoping for those big wins. But a passive manager, they're not really trying to beat the market. They're more focused on just tracking it steadily, mirroring a specific market index, like the S&P 500, for example.
So active is like higher risk, higher reward potential.
Exactly.
And passive is like, hey, let's just ride the wave.
Yeah, more of a steady, slow and steady wins the race kind of approach.
And this is where I guess those fees come in, right?
Right. Yeah, fees are definitely a big part of the equation. Actively managed funds, they usually have higher fees because you're paying for that expertise, that active management. The idea is that those fees are justified if the manager delivers those above average returns.
But that's not always a guarantee, is it? I was reading some research, and it seems like a lot of actively managed funds struggle to beat the market, especially after those fees are taken out.
That's true. There are a few reasons for that. One is definitely the fees themselves eating into the returns. But also, consistently predicting market movements is, well, really hard. Even for the pros, it's tough to consistently be right about what's going to go up and what's going to go down. And all that active trading can trigger more taxes too, which then impacts your overall gains.
Right, so those fees and taxes can really make a difference.
They can. It's important to keep in mind.
So on the other side, we have index funds. And they're kind of like the set it and forget it option, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Remember that passive manager we talked about? Index funds, that's where they shine. They're designed to replicate a specific market index, like we said, the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100. So if that index goes up, your investment goes up proportionally.
It sounds pretty straightforward. Is it really that simple?
It really can be. You're essentially betting on the overall performance of a particular slice of the market, No manager's trying to pick winners and losers, and that generally means lower costs and fewer taxes.
Wait, fewer taxes? How so?
Well, because index funds, they don't trade as much as actively managed funds, right? So there are fewer taxable events for investors, and that can really make a difference to your returns over the long haul.
So that's a big plus for index funds.
Mm-hmm.
Lower fees, potentially less tax burden, and more predictable growth.
Exactly.
So we've got a good grasp on the basics of both mutual funds and index funds. But how do we actually decide which one is right for us? How do we choose?
Well, that's where things get a little more interesting. We've got to consider a few other factors like, risk tolerance, investment goals, time horizon, all that good stuff.
And that sounds like a perfect topic for part 2 of our deep dive.
It sure does. We'll dig into all those crucial factors and help you figure out how to make the best decision for your situation. Welcome back. All right, so we talked about the basics of mutual funds and index funds, but now let's get into the nitty-gritty of actually choosing between the two.
Right. Decision time. But first, we got to talk about this whole risk tolerance thing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because it feels kind of like choosing the spice level at a restaurant.
Yeah.
You don't want to order something and then end up sweating and regretting your choice.
That's a great analogy. And risk tolerance is all about how comfortable you are with, the possibility that your investments could lose value. Some people are fine with those ups and downs, like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
While others prefer a smoother ride.
Okay, so How do we figure out where we land on that risk spectrum? Is there like a test or something?
Well, there are questionnaires and tools you can find online, but honestly, it really comes down to a few key factors.
Okay.
One of the biggest ones is your time horizon. How long are you planning to invest this money for?
Right. So if you're investing for retirement, you've got more time to like ride out those market dips.
Exactly. If you're investing for, say, 30 or 40 years, a little short-term volatility isn't going to derail your plans. You have time to recover.
But if you need the money in a couple of years for a down payment on a house.
Yeah, then you might want to be a bit more cautious. You don't want a sudden market downturn to mess things up right when you need that money.
Okay, so time horizon is huge. What else?
Your overall financial situation plays a big role too.
Mhm.
Do you have a stable income, limited debt, a healthy emergency fund?
Okay, so if things are pretty solid, maybe you can take on a bit more risk.
Right. It's like having that safety net. It allows you to be a bit more adventurous with your investments.
So-
But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, playing it safe is usually the better approach.
Yeah, that makes sense. Don't put yourself in a risky position.
And then there's the psychological factor, right? Some people are just naturally more comfortable with risk than others. Some people love the excitement of it, the potential for big wins.
Right, right.
But others get really anxious just thinking about the possibility of losing money.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know some people who can barely look at their investment statements.
Right. So it's crucial to be honest with yourself about your comfort level. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's all about finding what feels right for you.
Okay, so we've got a handle on risk tolerance. But how does that all connect back to choosing between index funds and mutual funds?
hmm
Is one inherently riskier than the other?
Well, generally speaking, index funds are considered lower risk because they're just tracking the overall market.
Okay,
It's like investing in a whole basket of apples instead of betting on just one apple being the best one.
right. Diversification. I've heard that's super important.
It is. Diversification is key to managing risk because by spreading your investments across different asset classes and sectors, you reduce the impact of any one investment doing poorly.
So if one stock tanks, it doesn't sink your entire portfolio.
Exactly. And with index funds, you get that diversification built in because they hold a wide range of stocks or bonds. They represent a whole segment of the market.
So index funds, they're typically lower risk, they offer diversification, and they generally have lower fees. Sounds like they've got a lot going for them.
They do. They're a great option for a lot of investors, but let's not count out actively managed mutual funds completely. They can still make sense in certain situations.
Right, because they have that potential to like really beat the market. It's kind of like if you have a favorite underdog sports team and you're hoping they'll pull off that big upset win.
Exactly. It's tempting to think you can find those hidden gems, but the reality is finding a manager who can consistently outperform the market over the long term, it's really tough.
And even if you do find that superstar manager, those higher fees can eat into your returns.
Exactly. So it's a trade-off, right? Higher potential reward with active management, but also higher risk and higher costs. So you have to weigh those factors carefully.
All right, so now we've talked about risk tolerance, and we've really gotten into the pros and cons of each type of fund.
Yeah.
So how do we actually use this information to build a portfolio?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's what we're going to tackle in part 3 of our deep dive. We're going to talk about portfolio construction, asset allocation, and all the fun stuff.
Perfect. I'm ready to put all of this knowledge into action. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about mutual funds, index funds, risk tolerance, but now it's time to get down to brass tacks. How do we actually build a portfolio? It feels like we've gathered all the ingredients, and now we're ready to cook up a delicious financial plan.
I love that. And you're right. This is where it all comes together. Building a portfolio is about creating a strategy that balances your goals, your risk tolerance, and your time horizon. It's about crafting something that's tailored to you.
Okay, so where do we even begin?
Well, the first step is understanding asset allocation.
Okay.
Asset allocation is simply how you divide your investments among different asset classes.
Like stocks, bonds, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Stocks, bonds, cash. Those are the big three. Think of it like building a house. You need a strong foundation, sturdy walls, and a roof that can withstand any storm.
Okay, so stocks are like the foundation, the high growth, high risk part of the portfolio.
You got it. Stocks have the potential for big returns, but they also come with greater volatility.
Yeah.
They're the engine of growth in your portfolio.
And bonds are more like the steady walls, providing stability and a bit of insulation from the market storms.
Exactly. Bonds tend to be less volatile than stocks, offering more predictable returns. They help smooth out those market ups and downs.
And cash is like the emergency fund,
Uh-huh.
tucked away, ready for those unexpected repairs or opportunities.
Precisely. Cash provides liquidity and stability, giving you quick access to funds if you need them.
All right, so we've got our building blocks: stocks, bonds, and cash. But how do we decide how much to allocate to each one?
Well, that's where your risk tolerance and time horizon come into play. Remember
Of
those.
course.
So let's say you're younger and you have a longer time horizon until retirement.
Yeah, more time to ride out those market dips.
Right. You might allocate a larger portion of your portfolio to stocks, maybe 70% or even 80%, with the remaining portion in bonds and cash.
Makes sense. It's like having a full tank of gas for a long road trip.
Exactly. But as you get closer to retirement, you might want to shift towards a more conservative allocation. Gradually increase your bond holdings and reduce your exposure to stocks.
So you don't want to be hitting those big bumps in the road right before you reach your destination.
Exactly. Now, how do index funds and mutual funds fit into this whole asset allocation thing? Well, you can use both. You
Okay,
can use a mix of both to diversify within each asset class.
gotcha. So, for example, I could have a core portfolio of index funds and then sprinkle in a few actively managed mutual funds that focus on specific areas I'm interested in.
Exactly. You could have a broad market index fund to capture the overall performance of the S&P 500. And then maybe you add a couple actively managed funds that focus on, I don't know, technology or healthcare, whatever sectors you believe have strong growth potential.
So it's like building a base with those index funds and then adding some flavor with those actively managed funds.
I like that. But remember, research is key. When choosing specific funds, look at things like expense ratios, past performance, manager track records, and the fund's investment strategy.
You want to make sure the ingredients are high quality and the recipe aligns with your taste.
Precisely. And remember, building a portfolio isn't a one and done thing. It's an ongoing process that requires monitoring and adjustments along the way.
Oh, okay. So it's like tending a garden. You plant the seeds, nurture the plants, and make adjustments as needed to help them thrive.
Exactly. It's a good idea to rebalance your portfolio periodically to make sure your asset allocation still aligns with your goals and risk tolerance. This might involve selling some investments that have performed really well and buying more of those that have lagged behind.
It's about maintaining that balance, that harmony in your portfolio garden.
Absolutely. And as your life changes, you get a promotion, buy a house, approach retirement, you might want to revisit your portfolio and make adjustments based on your new circumstances.
It's a dynamic process, always evolving.
That's what makes it so interesting. And as you learn more about investing, you'll gain more confidence and more control over your financial future.
This deep dive has been fantastic. We've learned so much about index funds, mutual funds, and building a portfolio. I feel much more equipped to make informed investment decisions.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, investing doesn't have to be overwhelming or scary. With a little bit of research, a solid strategy, and a long-term perspective, you can put yourself on the path towards reaching your financial goals.
Great advice. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of index funds and mutual funds. We hope you feel empowered to take control of your financial future. Until next time.